Israeli drone strike kills 3 and injures 9 in Tyre in southern Lebanon. A spokesperson for the UN Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs states aid access in Gaza is at a critical low. And 2 Palestinian prisoners die in Israeli detention. Good evening, you're watching Q News, and we start this evening with the latest developments in Lebanon and the Middle East.
كل المستهدفين مدنيين.
وضع شيء مرعب، شيء بخوف.
Three people have been killed and at least 9 others have been injured in an Israeli drone strike that targeted a residential area in the city of Tyre in southern Lebanon. According to Lebanon's national news agency, the Israeli drone strike hit the Al-Masakan al-Shabaya neighborhood in Tyre, causing significant damage to buildings and infrastructure. The blast also left several people trapped under the rubble, prompting urgent search and rescue operations. Ali Larijani, an advisor to Iran's supreme leader, has stated that Iran will back any decision taken by Lebanon in talks to secure a ceasefire deal with Israel. Larijani spoke during a visit to Beirut as Israel continued its intensified bombardment of the Lebanese capital. Iran's comments signal that Tehran seeks an end to the conflict, which has dealt significant blows to Hezbollah. Explosions have shaken Beirut's southern suburbs early this morning as Israel intensifies its attacks for the 4th straight day. The Israeli military has issued 2 evacuation orders for residents still in these mostly deserted areas since this morning. An Israeli airstrike has demolished a building in the crowded Tayuna neighborhood just a few kilometers from central Beirut. Although no casualties have been reported so far, the bomb hit the lower floors, leaving much of the structure in ruins. In the past 8 weeks, such airstrikes have destroyed hundreds of buildings and homes, displacing thousands of residents. As Israel sends mixed signals regarding a potential ceasefire with Hezbollah, analysts are warning of an imminent escalation. Despite ongoing diplomatic efforts, military preparations suggest a prolonged conflict with severe consequences for Lebanon.
As Israel delivers conflicting signals regarding its ceasefire with Hezbollah, analysts predict that the conflict will escalate further in the coming months. On November 6th, Israel's Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, announced that the military is preparing to intensify its campaign against Hezbollah. Paradoxically, Halevi also emphasized ongoing diplomatic efforts to secure a truce, a stance analysts describe as a calculated misdirection aimed at prolonging hostilities. The war, which has already devastated Lebanon's southern border regions, has claimed over 3,000 lives and displaced 1.4 million people. Critics argue that Israel's diplomatic overtures mirror tactics employed in Gaza, where ceasefire discussions with Hamas masked a sustained military offensive. That operation resulted in more than 43,000 deaths, the displacement of nearly 2.3 million people, and accusations of genocide by international bodies. A similar pattern appears to be unfolding in Lebanon. On October 30, Israel's public broadcaster leaked details of a ceasefire proposal reportedly crafted by the United States. The proposal stipulates an Israeli withdrawal from Lebanon within a week of a 60-day ceasefire, coupled with a demand for the Lebanese army to disarm Hezbollah. However, it also allows Israel to maintain strikes in southern Lebanon under the pretext of future threats, terms analysts have labeled as untenable and a precursor to further destabilization. Such conditions, which effectively require Hezbollah's surrender, are seen as incompatible with Lebanon's sovereignty and risk plunging the nation into civil war. As the region braces for intensified hostilities, the shadow of unresolved grievances looms, threatening to deepen an already volatile crisis.
Now, for more on the current situation in Lebanon, Mona is standing by in our newsroom. Mona.
Thank you so much, Mark. And for further analysis, we're joined from Beirut by Dr. Faisal Al-Muslah, International Relations Professor. Good evening to you, sir, and welcome to Qnews.
Good evening. Thank you for hosting.
Thank you so much. And what conditions are necessary for a genuine and lasting truce between Israel and Lebanon from your point of view?
Actually, for more than 20 days or for more than 1 month, Israel and the United States, they are negotiating with each other for a draft agreement to stop the war between Israel and Lebanon. The main point here is that Lebanon, the main party or the third party, is absent from this negotiation process. The United States did not even ask Lebanon about his point of view. So in their perspective, in the Israeli and the United States perspective, they consider Lebanon and is in a state of surrender. They consider that the Lebanese people, the Lebanese officials, the Lebanese residents are all seeking a ceasefire, and they will accept any draft agreement. They will accept any agreement that will lead to a ceasefire.
Now,
on the contrary, on the ground, sorry?
Please continue.
On the ground, things are different. On the battlefield, things are different. In the warfare, the Israeli now is still fighting on the borderline. He is not able, the Israeli is not able to occupy any village or any city in Lebanon. The resistance is strong and well-doing, and it's preventing the Israeli from entering to the second line or entering to any village or any city in Lebanon. So this is the case in Lebanon. Now, a few days ago, yesterday or a few hours ago, the Lebanese official received a draft agreement for ceasefire. This draft agreement mainly meets with all the Israeli conditions to stop the war. And this draft agreement neglects all the Lebanese goals and Lebanese ambitions for the ceasefire. So this draft agreement contains 3 main points. The first point is the disarming of the resistance. The second point is to move the resistance to the northern side of the Litani River. The third point is the Israeli to have a complete freedom to confront any arming of the resistance in the future.
Do you think, from your point of view, that has to do with the U.S. lawmakers calling for President Biden to take actions against some of the Israeli ministers? And what are they proposing?
Actually, imposing sanctions on Israeli officials, I think, will not change anything on the scene. All we know that Netanyahu government or Smotrich and the extremists, Smotrich and Ben Gvir, they are not allies for Biden. They do not support Biden administration. Also, we know that the Biden administration consider these 2 extremist officials. They are not friends for Biden administration. But the Biden administration did nothing to stop them. In the contrary, Biden administration for more than 1 year, it fulfilled all their dreams, all their demands, and sent weapons and money and everything to Israel. So, from my point of view, I think that imposing sanctions on Ben Gvir and Smotrich will not change anything on the scene.
Now, is President Biden likely to take any kind of steps regarding Israel-Palestinian conflict in this near future?
Actually, Biden administration and the Democratic Party in general suffered from a huge and big moral and ethical loss on the global and international level. So the Biden administration is willing and trying to achieve or to reach a ceasefire agreement between Israel and Lebanon, also between Israel and Hamas. But this willing always stuck with the permanent refusal of Netanyahu government to reach to any ceasefire that does not recognize surrender of Hamas and Hezbollah. So I think in the coming days we may see more draft agreements coming to Lebanon, and also we may see an intensifying for war on both fronts, on Gaza Strip and in Lebanon,
Right,
southern Lebanon.
right. That was Dr. Faisal Mustah, International Relations Professor. Thank you so much for your analysis here, and back to you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Mona. Now, the UN peacekeeping chief, Jean-Pierre Lacroix, has confirmed plans to enhance the UN mission in Lebanon to assist the Lebanese army once a truce is reached. Lacroix mentioned that the mission would collaborate with the army to support the implementation of a settlement, and that talks are ongoing with contributing countries to assess UNIFIL's needs. This may involve incorporating advanced technology without a troop increase. After a truce, UNIFIL could expand its capabilities to include demining and road repairs.
With the Lebanese armed forces, as we will be hopefully implementing or supporting them.
And smoke has been seen rising near Haifa in Israel following the launch of projectiles from Lebanon. And the US ambassador to Lebanon has submitted a draft truce proposal to Lebanon's Parliament Speaker Nabi Berri. This marks Washington's first written proposal in several weeks to halt the fighting between Israel and Hezbollah. The US has been working to broker a ceasefire to end the hostilities, but efforts have yet to yield results. Israel's military spokesperson has warned that the country will strike any attempts to transfer weapons to Hezbollah from Syria. Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari added that Israel has been conducting airstrikes from the Beirut suburb of Dahia, a Hezbollah stronghold, to Damascus. His remark came shortly after Syria's state news agency reported an Israeli airstrike targeting a bridge near the northern Lebanon border. 15 people have been killed and 16 others wounded in Israeli strikes on residential buildings in Damascus. The targeted buildings were located in the suburbs of Meza and Qudsaya, to the west of the Syrian capital, according to the Sana news agency. The attack occurred shortly before Ali Larijani, an advisor to Iran's Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, was scheduled to meet with representatives of Palestinian factions at the Iranian embassy. Gaza now, and a senior Hamas leader has told AFP that the movement is ready to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and is calling on US President-elect Donald Trump to pressure Israel. Bassem Naim, a Hamas political bureau member, stated that Hamas is ready for a ceasefire in Gaza if Israel agrees to stop the fighting. He urged the U.S. administration and former President Trump to pressure Israel to end its aggression and alleviate the suffering of Palestinians. He also expressed hope that President-elect Trump would take action to halt the war immediately. Hundreds of Palestinians in Israel have gathered for a rally calling for the end of war in Gaza and Lebanon. The protesters marched in al-Fahm, chanting slogans, calling for the end of the war and carrying banners and posters, including of civilians in Gaza killed or injured since October 7th. Person for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has stated that aid access in Gaza is at a critical low, with deliveries to parts of besieged northern Gaza nearly impossible. At a Geneva press conference, the spokesperson responded to questions about the improvement of humanitarian access, saying all indicators are moving in the wrong direction. He expressed particular concern about northern Gaza, where residents and displaced families have been ordered to move south as Israel's month-long military incursion continues. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Expatriates has welcomed the adoption of a resolution by the Third Committee of the United Nations General Assembly, which affirms the Palestinian people's right to self-determination, independence and freedom. The ministry stated that 170 countries voted in favor of the resolution, including nations that have shifted their positions to support this fundamental right, which is a cornerstone of the United Nations Charter. The ministry also called on the countries that oppose the resolution, the Six Nations, Israel, the United States, Argentina, Paraguay, Micronesia and Nauru, to reassess their positions and align with the moral majority in accordance with international law. Two Palestinian prisoners from Gaza have died in Israeli detention. That's according to the Palestinian Prisoners Society and the Palestinian Prisoners Affairs Commission. Both organizations condemned the deaths, describing them as part of what they called Israel's slow death policy against Palestinian prisoners. They accused Israeli authorities of systematic torture, medical negligence, and the denial of basic needs, which they say have led to the deaths of many prisoners over the years. The groups called for international accountability, urging global action to end practices they argue violate human rights and international law. The Palestinian death toll from Israel's onslaught since October 2023 has climbed to 43,764, with over 103,490 people injured. In the past 24 hours, Israeli forces have carried out 3 massacres targeting families in the Gaza Strip. That's according to medical sources. These attacks left at least 28 Palestinians dead and 120 others wounded. Almost 90 congressional Democrats have urged President Joe Biden to impose sanctions on 2 far-right Israeli officials for their roles in inciting settler violence in the West Bank. The letter, signed by 17 senators and 71 members of the House of Representatives, was sent in late October before the U.S. election in which Donald Trump secured his victory. It was made public to pressure President Biden to take action during his final months in office, as frustration grows within his party over his administration's reluctance to hold the Israeli government accountable. Ukraine and Russia now. A government spokesperson has confirmed that German Chancellor Olaf Scholz has demanded the withdrawal of Russian troops from Ukraine. Scholz and Russian President Vladimir Putin held a phone call lasting 1 hour. Their first conversation since December 2022. That's according to a German government source. During the call, Putin emphasized that the current crisis is a direct result of years of aggressive NATO policies. Scholz, on the other hand, urged Russia to demonstrate a willingness to negotiate with Ukraine to achieve a just and lasting peace. Meanwhile, the UN humanitarian coordinator in Ukraine, Mateusz Chmale, has said any additional Russian attacks on Ukraine's energy system could trigger a further wave of mass displacement as winter approaches. He also added, as the war grinds towards its third winter, civilians are more vulnerable than at any other time during the winter. That's due to Russian strikes on its energy system and donor fatigue. Around 65% of Ukraine's own energy production is currently offline due to Russian strikes, which is more than at this same point of the year in 2022 and in 2023.
First, in terms of the winterization, if you could say a little bit more about
The Ukrainian Defense Minister, Rustem Umerov, has said that Ukraine remains steadfast in its mission to reclaim all territory claimed by Russia the past decade, dismissing claims of a strategic shift as false. He made the remarks during a joint press conference with his Norwegian counterpart in Oslo. Umerov emphasized that territorial integrity is a core value for Ukraine and denied reports suggesting a shift in the country's priorities. And Russian airstrikes have targeted a residential building and energy facilities near Ukraine's Black Sea port of Odessa, killing 1 person and injuring 8. Odessa Regional Governor Oleg Kuiper reported that the attack destroyed a multi-story residential building, ignited apartments and damaged around 30 vehicles. Central heating infrastructure, including the boiler plant and pipeline, was also impacted, disrupting heating services temporarily. Governor Kuiper added that repair work is underway to restore the boiler plant, which serves parts of the city, including a maternity hospital. Russia has reported that it had taken control of the settlement of Voznesenka in Ukraine's Donetsk region. Meanwhile, Ukraine's military reported engaging in 88 battles with Russian forces over the past 24 hours. Russia's Ministry of Defense claimed that its attacks resulted in the deaths and injuries of Ukrainian troops, as well as the destruction of Ukrainian equipment, including tanks, howitzers, electronic reconnaissance stations and ammunition depots. The Russian air defense system also shot down 78 Ukrainian drones. That's almost all we have time for, but just time to recap the headlines. Israeli drone strikes kill 3 and injure 9 in Tyre in southern Lebanon. A spokesperson for the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs states aid access in Gaza is at a critical low. And 2 Palestinian prisoners die in Israeli detention. And that concludes our news bulletin for the hour. And don't forget to follow Qnews on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEGY. And thank you for watching. Good night.